People still talk about those hills. They say something comes down on full moon nights. Too big for a wolf, too fast for a man, rips up dogs, leaves bones stacked. Old folks say only silver works. Most people laugh. I don't. In 2004, up on a ridge in Appalachia, me and two other soldiers saw what was really out there. We weren't drunk, we weren't lost. We were armed and trained, and it still almost killed us. What happened wasn't rumor. It was blood, screams, fear that sticks with you. And if you think I'm lying, then you've never heard your own name come through a dead radio in the middle of the night. So before we continue, please make sure to like and subscribe to support the channel and comment down below where you're watching from. Thanks. We got sent for a week of map and compass nonsense. No GPS. The brass said it builds grit. It mostly just builds blisters. We had rucks, rifles, radios, and a bad plan. The kind that slides off a whiteboard easy and then eats you alive in the tree line. Our platoon humped in on a Sunday. Cold morning, breath like smoke. We set a camp by a creek that sounded tired. Water moved over rocks with this old man cough. Tents went up crooked, lines hung low. The ground was roots and regret. We were rank with sweat and bug spray. Top walked around with that look like he was born disappointed. Butterbar tried to look brave and failed. We had 3 squads, some trucks parked on a logging road 2 clicks back, and enough MREs to kill a normal man. We pretended to be excited. My team was me, Berto, and Dale. 3 idiots with good boots and bad luck. Berto was from Texas. He was loud and had a smile that could flip a coin. He treated every hike like a bet and every bet like he had already won. He played spades like it was crime. He kept a little St. Christopher medal tucked under his shirt, said it was his grandma's. Said it kept him from doing stupid. It didn't. Dale was the quiet one. Midwest. Big hands. Eyes like a winter lake. He drew in a little green notebook. Trucks, rifles, faces, trees. He'd hand you a page and the thing would look more real than real. Dale never talked unless he had to. When he did, people shut up and listened. Me? I was just trying to keep my boots dry, which you never do in those hills. I had a sore knee from a bad jump. I had an ex who mailed my letters back with the word return stamped like a slap. I was not special. I was tired like everyone else. It was fine. We ran lanes. React to contact. Buddy team rush. Ambush with blanks and deer staring at us like we were dumb. Night fell in layers. Fog ate the ridges. Our night vision flickered like it needed a smoke break. The radio crackled with the same 3 words. Say again over and over. Fire watch. Guard shifts. Red lens light. Cigarettes cupped in palms like secrets. We slept in wet socks. We pretended we weren't scared of the woods. The woods pretended it didn't care we were there. Normal. Military normal. Which is to say, not normal at all. We heard things first. It was a small sound at first, like an old dog dragging a chain in leaves. It came from the swale below camp just before morning. Not a fox, not a deer. Too heavy to be a raccoon, too careful to be a bear. Berto saw my head come up on guard shift and whispered, "It's nothing, man." Squirrels with attitude. Then we found tracks, not clean boot prints. Not boots at all, something like a bare foot but not. Too long, toes too far spread. The heel was wrong. Dale crouched over the prints, ran a finger around the edges, then wiped his hand on his pants like he had touched a bad idea. "Human?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not right." Top told us to stop reading the ground like it was a tabloid. He was a good man, but not a poetic one. Butterbar said weather and erosion and the guy smelled like new plastic. We nodded like yes, sir. We kept our eyes high and our rifles low because this was training, and the worst you expect in training is a twisted ankle and someone throwing a pine cone at your head. Then the locals showed ghost light in the tree line on day 3. Old pickup down on the logging road. 2 men with faces built by work and tobacco. They flagged our trucks while we were out on a land nav course and told the drivers we were camped on a bad ridge. Said to pack up and go. Said the holler was off. Said full moon was coming. Our drivers laughed. One waved his patch like it was a badge. Another said hoo-wah. The locals didn't hoo-wah back. They looked past the drivers into the trees and did not smile. The drivers told us later that those men had eyes like dogs that have seen bad things. We chalked it up to locals being locals. Every training area has a story. Witches in the pines, ghost soldiers in old uniforms, lights dancing over old battlefields, drunk hunters, meth heads, boars, bored officers. There is always a story. You learn to nod and move on before the story puts hands on you. That night I could not sleep. Not from fear, from noise. The hills made a sound like a throat clearing. Wind, I told myself. Fog rubbing trees together. The creek coughing again. But every once in a while the wind would go dead and the sound would keep going. That was not wind. That was breathing. Slow. Measured. Like something counting us. Berto muttered prayers in Spanish under his breath. He did that sometimes. Dale drew by headlamp, thin lines in that green notebook, erasing and drawing again, making a shape he would not show me. The radio popped, hissed, and then I heard a word that did not belong. Hungry, it said. Then nothing. I tapped the handset. Say again. Over. The radio went back to static and common sense. I told myself I had misheard the hiss. Radio's hiss. Hiss sounds like all kinds of words when your brain wants to play. When the moon came up, it came up big as a plate. Yellow, fat, low, not full yet. Getting there. It brushed the tops of black trees and made them look like ragged teeth. I wanted to laugh at myself. Instead, I checked my knife as if that would help. It kicked off on day 4, late afternoon. We were running a recon lane on an old mining road. Weather could not decide if it hated us or wanted to date us. Sun, shadow. We found a deer. A big buck. Not shot. Not dragged by coyotes. Torn. Ripped like a zipper had been pulled wrong and fast. Fur everywhere. Ribs cracked like kindling. No guts. No tracks I could trust. Blood on rocks like fingerprints. The smell crawled into my mouth and would not leave. Butterbar said mountain lions. He said it twice, like saying it made it real. Top squinted off into the trees with a face that said he had hunted all his life and had seen something else. Berto poked the air with his rifle like he could shove the smell away. No cat did that, he said. Cats are neat. They hide their mess. This looks like a blender had a stroke. We marked the spot on our map because that's what you do. We moved on because that's what you do. The woods felt busy. Birds went quiet the way birds do when they know more than you. The road narrowed until it was less a road than a memory of one. We came to a collapsed shack with a rusted stove in it. Someone had spray painted a cross on the stove. Not neat. Thick. Angry. Fun, I said. Bad juju, Berto muttered. Dale reached out and touched the paint. Dried years ago. He wiped his finger again like he could not stop. When night fell, it fell like an ambush. Full dark. The moon climbed a little higher, a little colder. Not full yet. Close enough the woods could read by it. Firewatch shuffled. Snoring started. I sat my shift with a poncho around my shoulders and a tab of instant coffee slow melting under my tongue. The breathing came back. From the swale again, closer. Then I heard claws on stone. Not big claws. Not bare. Bare claws scrape and scratch wide. This was thinner. As if fingernails had grown wrong. I clicked my radio. You hear that, over? Dale answered from the other side of the tents, voice low, bored like always. I hear it. Want to tell Top? No. Why? Because he will make me go look. A shape moved up the swale, slow, like it did not care we saw it. It did not move like a man. Too smooth, hips wrong, shoulders too high. When it stepped out where the moon kissed the grass, I saw hair along its ribs. Not fur. Hair, like on a man's forearm, but longer, meaner. Its head turned and the angle was wrong for a deer and wrong for a bear and wrong for a man. Berto whispered, Jesus, Mary, and tacos. I could not decide if I wanted to stand up or melt into the dirt. Training says challenge. My body said shut up and be a rock. The shape moved on. It did not break twigs. It did not hurry. It just went, the way shadows go. It slid into the pines past the creek, and then it was gone. We did not tell Top. That was dumb. We were dumb. But the Army teaches you to ignore feelings that don't fit the training schedule. We were on a schedule. We ignored the thing like grown men. Ignore a leak in the roof. If we don't look up, rain doesn't exist. At morning, someone had cut a slit in the back of Dale's tent. Clean, quiet. No stuff stolen, just a slit, like a smile. Dale pressed the fabric together and stared at it too long. Animal, he said without believing it. Butterbar wrote a note in his book and told us to double our perimeter discipline. Perimeter discipline is code for stop being dumb. We nodded and went about being dumb again. The next day was louder. We moved to a new ridge because the scenario said we should. The old maps had contour lines like spaghetti. We climbed until my knees put in transfer paperwork. The air felt chewed. The moon fattened. We set new tents. Dug shallow fighting positions that were more like scratches. Berto laughed and carved a small cross into the root beside his hole with his bayonet. He kissed that St. Christopher and tucked it back inside his shirt. He looked like a man trying to buy luck with a cheap coin. We heard howls in the afternoon. Coyotes, we told ourselves. But the sound stacked on itself, deep and high together, like two pipes playing one song. Coyotes don't do that. You feel coyote in your ears. This dropped into your chest and lingered there like a hand. Top said the local warden had warned about wolves. We nodded like that made sense. Wolves this far south and east, okay, sure. We let him have the line so he could keep moving his clipboard brain forward. I respected that. Leaders need stories too. After evening chow, Benji from 2nd Squad didn't come back from the river. He had gone down with canteens and a half smile. He did not come back. We called his name. We got echoes that sounded like we owed money. We ran a hasty search line along the creek and found his canteens in the water, clinking against a rock. We found one boot print and a smear like someone had dragged a wet bag. Top called it, no night search. Too dangerous. He sent 2 runners down to the trucks. The radio said go slow and the night said no. And we stood there counting ourselves over and over, like counting would change the math. Just before midnight, we all woke to the radio. Not a voice. Sniffing. Wet, right up against the mic, then a thump like the handset dropped, and then a growl so low I felt my teeth ache. Who was on my net? Top barked. It came out too sharp. Fear always turns to anger first. No answer. Only breath. Then the radio clicked off. Silence fell like a lid. We heard claws clatter on metal down on the logging road, like something had jumped onto a truck hood, and then off again. Then we heard the truck's alarm and that short chirp they do when the batteries are half dead and your key fob hates you. It chirped 3 times, like a laugh, and stopped. By morning, 2nd Squad found what looked like Benji's cap hung on a low branch. It was bitten through. Teeth marks like a joke carved by a mean child. Big. Too big. Butterbar decided we should do a presence patrol. Show the hills we were in charge. That is the thing we say when we have no idea what else to do. We cut through a thicket that liked to grab ankles and fell into a small hollow full of saplings. Dale stopped. He pointed. Up on a rock, there was something scratched into lichen. Not letters, not lines. A circle with a slash, claw marks all around it like something had not liked the drawing. Witchy, Berto said. Minor sign, Dale said. I have seen it in books. Means no go. Old crews used to mark bad ground. He touched the rock and made a face. Like the stone had a temperature and it was wrong. We kept moving. We found a set of bones that belonged to no animal I could place. Long, thin, with joint knobs where they should not be. Berto poked them with a stick until Dale took his stick away like you would with a child. The wood smelled like wet pennies and dog. The moon climbed higher that night, almost full. I lay on my back in my hole and stared up. The light had a weight. It put hands on my face. I rolled onto my side. I could not get comfortable. I could not get quiet. My heart said, run. My legs said, where? Sometime after midnight, the world tipped. A scream cut the ridge. Not a man. Not a woman. Not a thing I want to put in words because words can make doors. It came from the direction of the creek and we all went still like deer do. The scream turned into a snarl and then into a sound like a pig being broken in half. Weapons, Top hissed. And then we had rifles up like that would do a damn thing. I saw eyes in the tree line. Not reflectors, not the green cat glow. These were a dull yellow like old honey left in the sun too long. The eyes blinked wrong. A sideways flick first, then a normal blink. It stood tall and then low and then tall again, like it did not know what shape it wanted. It walked into our light, 2 legs. Then it dropped to 4 like a man remembers he used to be a dog. The hair on its shoulders stood up like a coat being hung. Its muzzle, no, face, was long and wrong. Teeth, too many for me to count without throwing up. Do not fire, Top said because he had to say it. Training. Don't fire outside training. Do not make noise. Do not shoot blanks at a bear or a crazy. Do not escalate. The thing solved that for us. It moved. Fast. Fast. I have seen men run. I have seen dogs run. I have seen cars skid. This was a different verb. It was the world jumping forward. I could not count the steps. It was at the nearest tent, and the tent choked. Cloth ripped like paper. Someone inside yelled a word that might have been mom. Blood hit the air and made the trees taste like pennies. I fired. Everyone fired. We lit up the night and the brass flew and the smell went from blood to cordite and blood and smoke. The thing screamed back at us, not like it was hurt, but like we were rude. It moved sideways. It flowed. It knocked into a sapling and the sapling bent like a bow and stayed bent, like it liked the thing that touched it too much. Bullets hit. I saw impacts. I saw holes. The thing kept moving. It slowed, yes, but like a truck hit by rocks. Annoyed. We reloaded with hands that were not steady. Berto yelled in Spanish. Dale's mouth was open but no sound came out. Top cursed a long, low line of words and then moved us, because that is what good men do. He got us behind logs and rocks and he kept the platoon from spinning apart. Then the radio, our sad little brick, popped again. The same word as before, hungry. Only this time it sounded like the word had teeth in it. We did not sleep. The thing did not try again. It stood out in the trees and watched. You can feel that. You can feel eyes. People say that like poetry, but it is physics. The world bends when something stares at you the way a coin bends water skin before it breaks surface. At dawn, we counted heads and did not like the count. Benji was still gone. Smitty from 2nd Squad was hurt bad. He had deep rakes along his ribs like a rake had been pulled by a mean farmer. His dog tags hung bright against blood. I remember thinking how shiny they were. Shiny doesn't belong in the dirt. We pulled back to the trucks. We did not run because running makes prey. We moved hands on shoulders, step by step. The woods watched. The woods breathed. The moon ghosted pale in the daylight like it was hiding but not trying hard. The trucks were a mess. Hoods dented in 2 neat footprints high and wide. 1 windshield cracked from the outside in, spiderwebbed around a mark the size of a fist. No prints worth a picture, just gouges, as if claws had been careful. And someone had chewed the antenna of the lead truck, not cut, chewed. Ragged metal and tooth marks. Dale touched it and then made a face again and wiped his hand like the metal was oily. Top talked to Hire on the radio. The radio had good manners for once. He said the word medevac. He said the word wildlife. He did not say monster. You don't say monster on a radio. There are rules. Hire told us to hold. Rangers from the training area would come meet us. That sounded good until we touched our maps and realized we were farther in than planned. The miners' roads lied. The ridges lied. The compass spun a hair wrong like iron lived under our boots. The world did not want us found quick. Butterbar, shaking but trying to be useful, decided we should move to a nearby church marked on an old map. Stone walls, he said. Choke points. His voice was too clean. He was not wrong. He also did not know the hills like hills know themselves. We moved, slow. Rifles up, eyes tearing from lack of blinking. We came to the church at noon, a squat thing, brick and fieldstone, roof half collapsed, doors gone. A cemetery tucked behind it, stones tilted like they were listening to some story underground. A white pine had split graves with its roots and held 1 cracked marker like a child holds a toy too hard. Inside the church, we found old hymnals on the floor turned to mulch, and in the front, by the altar, a pile of metal-like offerings. Nails, screws, forks, bent quarters. A silver spoon. Not many. Silver is rare, but enough to look like a habit. On the back wall, someone had scratched a circle with a slash. Same as on the rock. Below it, newer, carved with a knife, a sentence. not elegant. Deep cuts, letters shaky but sure. It read, "He follows the moon and hates the silver." "Silver," Berto said and grabbed the spoon like it was a hand. He held it in the light. He looked at his St. Christopher. He frowned. "Steel," he said and let it fall. "Not silver." Dale picked up a quarter and looked at the year. He clicked it on his thumbnail. It made a duller sound than I expected. He shrugged. "Coated," he said. "Fake for decades. We scavenged, a fork or two. A little spoon that might have been silver, but who knows? A church lady's brooch shaped like a bird. Tacky, might have been real. We felt stupid because we were soldiers, and here we were like kids at a junk sale trying to fight a fairy tale." Top looked at the scratch on the wall and rubbed his jaw. "You boys believe in this stuff?" he asked no one in particular. Berto nodded too fast. "Yes," Dale said. "I believe we do not have a better plan." Top nodded back because he was a practical man. "Then we make a plan with stupid pieces and we love it like it is smart. We stripped down our kit. We took duct tape and taped little bits of maybe silver to our knives. We made a mess of it. Fort Tynes taped to bayonet lugs like we were building a scarecrow. We popped open a couple of rounds and did dumb things. We shaved slivers of the brooch, hammered them as caps under bullet tips. I am not proud of them. Ammo is not a toy, but fear will make a craftsman of anyone." Dale took the spoon and hammered it flat on a flat stone, tapping quiet like a man fixing a watch. He filed the edge with a broken hacksaw blade he found in the church boiler room. He made a little thin crescent knife. It looked like nothing. It looked like a sliver of moon. We made a small ring of stones in the church and started a tiny fire with a careful hand. Smoke went up through a hole in the roof and out like a prayer. We melted nothing because we had nothing good to melt. We just warmed our hands and told ourselves we were doing something. Afternoon fell hard and fast. Clouds dragged, wind picked up and brought smells we did not want. Wet fur, old pennies, a sweet rot that reminded me of a school locker that missed summer. I asked Dale what he had been drawing the last few nights. He hesitated, then flipped open his green book. The lines were thin and tight. He had sketched the shape we saw in the swale. At first, it read as a dog, then as a man, then as both and neither. He had scribbled notes in the margins in that tiny block he used. Words like shoulder, too high, hips wrong, handprints, not paw prints. The last page was a face. Eyes, a dull yellow, teeth unforgiving. He had shaded the mouth too dark. We heard it before dusk. Not howling. Walking. Walking. On two legs. The sound of someone in boots who has forgotten to pick up his feet. It walked around the church in a slow circle, sniffed the walls, scratched stone. A snort that blew dust off the sill and into our laps. Top held a finger up. Quiet. We were quiet. Even our breath went quiet. Even fear got shy. Something bumped the door frame. A low chuckle, not like a man, more like a crow laughed. Berto whispered, "Don't," to no one. Dale held his little moon blade and watched the shadow pass over the crack in the door. It paused and then moved on. Around. Around again. Counting us. "Why here?" I whispered. "Because we think it is safe," Dale said, which is just the same as saying it is not. Night gathered itself like a bad thought and sat on the ridge. The moon rose fat and final. Full, the thing started to sing. "I will not put all the sound in your ear. I will give you this fraction and you decide if you want the rest." It was a low hum at first, like a man trying to remember a song he heard once in a truck stop at 3 in the morning. Then it broke into a rhythm. 3 beats, pause, 2 beats, over and over. It walked while it sang. It walked while it scraped claws along stone in a slow little drum line. It wanted us to feel time. It wanted us to know time belonged to it. We set our sectors. We put stacks of broken pew for barricades. Berto rigged a trip line with one of his bootlaces in some busted glass. Dale told him it would not work. Berto said it would work enough to make him feel better. That is sometimes the only work a thing needs to do. The radio murmured on the floor where we had set it, static with a heartbeat under it. I clicked it off. The silence was worse. I clicked it on. I chose my devil. It came just after midnight. It eased a hand into the doorway like a man swinging an arm inside a cage to test the tiger. Hair, but not fur. Long fingers with black nails like knives. It flexed, sniffed, withdrew. It chuckled again, low and wrong. "Silver," I said in a voice I did not know. Berto pressed his cross to his lips. He had taped that bird brooch to his knife hilt, with so much tape it looked like a wad of gum. He flicked the blade and nodded at me, and he looked like a man about to try a magic trick that killed his uncle once. Dale stood by the broken window with his little moon blade. He extended it and touched it to the sill. The metal made a small sound. Not pretty, like a fork on a plate. The breathing at the window paused, then pulled back. "Interesting, maybe," Dale said. The thing pushed the door, and the wood scraped brick. We pushed back with our legs. It pushed, we pushed. It wanted to play tug. The door shuddered in a rhythm like a heartbeat. Berto whispered the Hail Mary out of order. Top said steady. Butterbar said nothing at all. Then claws snaked through the gap and grabbed the edge of a pew and ripped it like cardboard. It threw the pew sideways and it smashed into the wall, and the wood sent up a smell like sap and years and church ladies crying. I do not know why that smell hit me that way, but it did. The thing laughed again, more air this time, less sound. We fired. You cannot help it sometimes. It is in the bones. The doorway chewed splinters. The rounds slapped stone and ricocheted, little angry bees. The thing stepped back. We moved forward. We pushed the door harder. We thought we had won a hand in a game no one taught us the rules to. It hit the wall beside the window. Hard. Bricks jumped and dust rained on my shoulders. A claw slid through the broken window and caught the shoulder of my blouse and pulled me toward daylight, or moonlight. Same thing for a thing that lives in the night. I slammed my knife into where I thought the wrist would be. The taped on Fort Tynes bit skin and bent, and my blade bit something else. The thing made a noise. Not big. A hiss, yes, but not just pain. Surprise. It pulled back fast. I went stumbling and fell. My knee screamed. I saw a smear of dark on my knife, and then it bubbled. Not like blood hitting air, like fat on a pan. The smell went sweet for a second, then metallic again. Dale leaned, touched his little silver moon blade to the smear. It fizzed. Dale met my eyes, and that was the first time I saw actual fear in him, clean and honest. "It hates it," he said. Outside, it paced. Faster. It made small, angry sounds. It spoke. Not words. Almost. The way a child sounds. The way a man drunk on fever tries to remember a prayer. "Hun, gree," it said again, and then a string of noises like it wanted to say more and did not know how. The trip line went. Glass chimed. It came through the door like a tide. It did not bother with sneak now. It hit the barricade and drove it back. We scattered like kids in a water fight where the water is knives. It was tall. Too tall. It had to stoop to get inside, and still it filled the room. Fur along its shoulders, skin like gray leather around armpits and belly, ribs visible, muscles like ropes that had lived a hard life, face long, nose wet, eyes dull yellow like old headlights through fog, teeth, I said that already, too many, some chipped, some broken, tongue black, hands, those hands, 5 fingers, nails curved, palms calloused like a man who has swung a hammer, wrists thick with scar. Berto yelled and rushed like a dumb hero, and I loved him for it and hated him for it. He drove his knife forward. The taped-on brooch blade kissed the thing's ribs. It smoked. I saw actual smoke. The thing flinched back, not from the cut, from the metal. It grabbed Berto by the shoulder and tossed him like he was laundry. He hit the pew, cracked it, did not get up. Top fired 2 quick shots and stepped like a boxer. The rounds hit. The thing stumbled like it had tripped over a thought. Dale slid in and whipped that little moon blade across the thing's forearm. A clean line, and the cut lit up like a bad Christmas. Skin sizzled. The thing shrieked. It backed up. It slipped on old hymnals and looked surprised by paper cuts and gravity at the same time. I put 3 more into its chest because that is what you do when you have a rifle and a problem. Holes opened like little mouths. It hissed and closed them. That's what I saw. Closing. Slow, but not slow enough. A hard thing to accept. It grabbed Dale. The room shifted. Time slowed in that stupid way stories always say, but it did. The fingers closed on Dale's jacket, then skin, then something in him more than skin. Dale's eyes went wide and calm. He still had that little blade. He slipped it underhand and drove it up under the thing's jaw, where the skull turns into soft. He buried it to the hilt. He twisted. The room filled with the smell of pennies and burnt hair. The thing wheeled and threw him. He hit stone and folded. I picked up my knife. I picked up a chunk of silver spoon Dale had dropped earlier. I felt like a child in a kitchen. I slammed that chunk with the heel of my hand into the thing's side where blood had slicked the hair. It smoked. It bucked. It turned its head and looked right into me. Not through me, into. It saw me. It saw the shape of my fear. It inhaled like it was smelling what my fear eats for breakfast. Hungry, it said again, softer now. Not hungry like belly. Hungry like loss. Hungry like I want to be what you are, but better and worse. We forced it back, pressed with our little stupid bits of silver. It backed through the door, into moonlight, and ran a few paces and then turned and ran on all fours and then turned again and stood silhouetted against that fat corn of a moon. It howled. The howl climbed into my head and unpacked a suitcase. It put clothes on hangers. It moved in. Then it was gone, into the pines. The night sighed like a widow. We did not cheer. Someone started to, and Top shut him up with a look. Berto groaned and rolled. One of his shoulders was wrong. Dale sat up slow, bleeding from the ear. He blinked at me like he wanted to ask a question he had forgotten when he fell. Silver, he said again, to make sure the world had heard him. Silver, I said back, like a prayer I did not know. We pushed for the trucks at noon, sun hard, road curving like a belt around the hill. He hit us there, came sideways out of the drop, fast. On 4, then up on 2. First seconds were a wreck. Top smashed its wrist with a board studded in shiny nails. Smoke. It shrieked. Berto cut its arm with the taped brooch. More smoke. It tossed him like laundry. His shoulder went bad. Dale slid in quiet. Cut the hamstring with that little moon blade. It half fell, grabbed him, bit deep into his forearm. He yanked free, bleeding hard. I put rounds into throat. It staggered, smiled. That smile lives with me. Push it into the sun, Top barked. We did. Boots, boards, panic. It kept dodging for shade. We crowded it into heat and glare. The fur looked dull there. Eyes blinked wrong. Dale climbed the hurt knee like a ladder. He drove the silver into one eye, twisted, then the other. Smoke. A wet reed sound. It swung blind and knocked him cold. I didn't think. I grabbed Berto's St. Christopher off the ground, warm like skin. I jumped, shoved the coin into its mouth between those busted teeth. It bit down, snap, scream. Top hit low, 2 more hit high, and we heaved. It pitched off the road, tumbled through brush, slammed rock. Dust lifted, then quiet. Dale didn't wake. Berto breathed, hurt but stubborn. The thing twitched once at the bottom and went still. I could not tell if that was dying or the world being weird. Either way, it did not climb back out. Rangers came by evening, ropes, tarp. They hauled up a shape that smoked at one corner. No one said the word werewolf. They wrote wildlife on their forms. A county old-timer walked the site, saw the bright metal in the church and said, "He follows the moon and hates the silver," like he was reading a weather report. We zipped Dale. The sound took something from me I don't get back. We loaded Berto with his broken wing. Top stared at the trees like they were talking. Higher told us not to talk. Of course, I kept half the St. Christopher. The other half is teeth marks and memory. I carry it still. Berto runs a taco truck and rubs his scar when alley dogs walk funny. Top keeps bees and says honey is sunlight you can eat. I visited the ridge once. The church is smaller. The wall still says silver. In the brush below the curve, briars hide rocks. Bones sit in a neat little pile. Rabbit maybe. Or neat hands. Nights, I hear that old rhythm in the trees beyond my porch. 3 beats, pause, 2 beats. I don't pray. I listen. The coin sits warm in my pocket. The spoon stays in the drawer by the door. So that's the end of our video. If you made it this far, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free. And if you want more terrifying encounters like this one, check out the other videos on screen right now. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there. See you soon.